Am I the WIBTA for going to the funeral of my ex-girlfriend's brother and missing my SIL's wedding? Story 1. I, a male, 25, have been in a relationship with Amelia, a female, 26, for 2 years. She's wonderful. We live together and I think we're close to getting engaged. In the past, I was in a relationship with Julia, a female, 25. We met in high school and had a very passionate relationship for 5 years, but it didn't work out. In the end, it got quite heated between us, and even with her parents, we blocked each other. Julia had a brother, Dan, who was also 2 years younger, and we always shared a special bond. Like me, he wanted to become a doctor, and I helped him with medical school. Even after the breakup, we stayed close. Julia and her parents weren't aware. He was definitely very important to me, almost like a younger brother. Unfortunately, Dan had a car crash and passed away last week. I didn't know until Julia came to my home to tell me 2 days ago. I'm absolutely devastated. She apologized because she wasn't aware that Dan and I were still close. She also thanked me for being there for him when he was fighting depression and said that all her family would like to see me at his funeral next Sunday in their hometown, a 7-hour drive. I replied that I wasn't sure if I could come because I'm running low on money at the moment and my car will be at the mechanic's. She said she could drive me there, but she had to be there 2 days earlier to help with organizing things. I said that I would think about it. We exchanged numbers and hugged, and she cried a little and said she was sorry for all the things in the past and was happy to see me again. Amelia came home at this moment, and I explained the situation when Julia left. She already knew about my past relationship with Julia and my friendship with Dan. Amelia told me that I wouldn't be able to go to the funeral because her sister's wedding is on the same day and we both agreed to go. I said that I needed a bit of time to process all of that. The following morning, I had a very emotional phone call with Dan and Julia's parents. They apologized for the past and thanked me for being there for Dan, saying that they would always consider me family from now on. They insisted that they'd like to host me for the funeral to save me the cost. After I had some time to think, even if it stinks for Amelia and the wedding, I cannot imagine missing Dan's funeral. I talked to my co-residents and the head of the unit, and they're okay with me missing a few days and covering for me. When I told Amelia my decision, she blew up and said that I was a huge prick to ditch her and her family in favor of my exes. She said that I'd already committed to the wedding and I couldn't leave her alone to reconnect with my ex. We had a big argument and haven't talked much since. I had received some messages from her friends and her sister. They said that I'm a major creep for abandoning my girlfriend in favor of my ex. I was sure about making the right choice, but I started to feel bad and second-guess myself, so am I the After intense reflection, I decided to stick with my prior engagement and go to the wedding. I called Julia to briefly explain the situation, and I also called her parents to apologize and tell them that I'd come to pay my respects to them and to Dan's grave once I got my car back. They were very understanding. Amelia was still mad at me though. She blamed me for being tempted by Julia and her family again after the wedding and for pulling the long face. I was still very hurt by Dan's death, so yeah, I wasn't at my best. Our relationship was really going sour. I felt she wasn't supporting me, and while I was grieving my friend, I started to see a new side of her and perhaps we weren't meant to be. After another argument, we broke up 1 to 2 weeks after the wedding. She tried to salvage our relationship, but the damage was done. At this point, I was at my lowest, totally devastated. In just a few weeks, I lost my friend and my relationship. I was in a really bad place. A few days later, I got my car back. Luckily, it was a minor issue and didn't cost me an arm and a leg. Once I got a weekend off, I visited Dan's grave and his parents. They gifted me his stethoscope, and it meant a lot to me. Julia was also there, and we all remembered our memories with Dan. Very nice and emotional moments. I felt very bad about missing the funeral, but his family convinced me that what mattered was how I was present for him during his life. After that trip, I started to hang out with Julia again. It just happened naturally. Even after several years, I have to admit that we still have a deep bond. Nothing romantic, though. We are both grieving for Dan, and I just ended my relationship with Amelia. We both agreed that rushing into a relationship would be a bad idea. Currently, we enjoy spending time together as friends. Step by step, I started to feel better. The pain is still there, but I'm learning to live with it. I try to enjoy my life, to improve as a man and as a resident every day. I'm lucky to have a great support group to rely on, especially one of my co-residents who really stepped up and is becoming an awesome friend. I'm currently living with him now until I find a new apartment. I have had almost no contact with Amelia since the breakup, probably for the best. I was quite bitter at one point, wondering how I went from thinking about proposing to her to breaking up in just a few weeks, but with time, I got closure. I know I have my fair share of responsibility, but it is what it is. The past is a past, and now I look to the future with hope and optimism. Now, this story delves into the complexities of relationships, loss, and the choices that shape our lives. This 25-year-old doctor in training was navigating the delicate balance between safeguarding one's future and paying homage to cherished memories of the past, which can evoke a profound sense of being caught at the crossroads of life, most challenging decisions. It's hard to imagine anyone willingly stepping into his shoes, faced with the daunting task of making such a tough decision. He's got Amelia, his living girlfriend, who's apparently on the brink of getting a ring on it. Then there's Julia, his high school old flame, re-enters the scene with a bombshell about her brother's passing, putting him in a tight spot. I'm certain that he would have attended the services in a heartbeat if not for a prior engagement he had already committed to, Amelia's sister's wedding. Also, it would have been beneficial if Amelia had showed some understanding instead of succumbing to jealousy. After all, Dan did have a special place in his heart, almost like a younger brother. After some introspection, he opted for the wedding, which set off a chain reaction of emotions encompassing sadness, frustration, and perhaps even a lingering undercurrent of resentment, which ultimately culminated in the end of his relationship with Amelia. The story shifts to a touching moment as we witness him dealing with grief and regrets. He finally does pay his respects to Dan and reconciles with Julia. And in the end, he's learning to deal with the pain with the help of some awesome friends. He's picking up the pieces and looking ahead with a dash of hope and optimism. Now, this story reminds us that life can throw unexpected curveballs, and sometimes tough choices have to be made. It also shows the importance of support systems and how people can find solace and strength in their friends during difficult times.
Hey, by the way, this video is sponsored by me and my friends at Rufus Rugs. We create custom, hand-tufted rugs that perfectly reflect your style. So whether you want to get one of our thumbnails as a rug for, research purposes, or maybe you just want to get some cool anime-style rugs for your room, check out Rufus Rugs by clicking the first link in the description.
Story 2. My wedding was back on Saturday, December 31st, and I'm still getting backlash from this, so I want to know if this was an a-hole move. In the country I live in, it's currently winter, and we get a fair amount of snow, so my wedding was a winter-themed wedding. The color theme was forest green and gold. My dress was obviously white, and I chose the color of my bridesmaids' dresses to be forest green as well. My maid of honor's dress was black, and everyone was to wear gold accessories. So I have this friend, we'll call her Kat, that I used and asked to be one of my bridesmaids. When we went dress shopping, I told them the color theme I was going for. Kat immediately expressed that she thought forest green was a bad choice. She said she thinks it's not a flattering color and thought I should choose something different and more girly. I said no, because it was my wedding and it was winter themed and I thought the color would go perfect with the theme. She suggested a pink, a blue, even a red. I said, no, but thanks for your opinion. She found out my maid of honor's dress was black and asked if she could wear black too. I said no, only my maid of honor is wearing black. I paid for all the dresses. Fast forward to wedding day, everyone's getting their hair and makeup done and Kat shows up 30 minutes late holding a bag that looked like it had a dress inside. I asked her what this was for. She told me it was for later at the reception if she got uncomfortable and wanted to change after pictures. I was like, okay, cool. So fast forward, we're all dressed up and walking down the stairs because the ceremony is beginning in 30 minutes and we're going to take some pictures before it starts. Kat is the last person to come down and she's wearing a black dress. At the time, I was preoccupied taking pictures with my parents, but my maid of honor came over to me and made me aware of the situation. I confronted Kat and asked her what was going on. She said she hates her bridesmaid dress because the color is ugly and makes her look gross, so she's wearing black. I told her to please go back and change. She refused and started walking away from me. I said I'm going to ask her one more time, and if she doesn't, I'm calling security and kicking her out. She began yelling at me to get lost, so I called security and asked them to please escort her out, and she started making a big scene, yelling that I couldn't force her to wear anything and that I was a horrible, inconsiderate friend. The wedding went on, and it was truly amazing, but ever since the wedding, Kat has been blowing up my phone with texts saying some really nasty things and asking for the money back she spent on the black dress since it was a waste and she didn't get to wear it. I had to block her number. Some of my other bridesmaids have been giving me trouble, saying that it was a little harsh to kick her out and embarrass her like that, and that maybe I should give her the money back. AITA for kicking her out? This story reminds me of those moments when you're planning a night out with some buddies and there's that one friend who insists on going to a different club. So the bride had a specific vision for her wedding, including a color theme of forest green and gold. It's not inherently wrong for her to have preferences and make decisions about the color of her entourage's dresses, as the wedding is a significant event for her. However, this choice evidently didn't sit well with one of the bridesmaids, Kat. She felt it was far from flattering. Kat suggested more girly alternatives, but the bride politely declined the suggestions, maintaining her vision for her big day. Things took a turn when Kat showed up late to the wedding day preparations with another bag containing a different dress. Our bride was taken aback, and in the end, security was called and Kat was escorted out amid a scene. Some may view this as an extreme reaction, while others may see it as a bride standing her ground on her vision. What becomes a point of contention in this story is how the bride handles disagreements with Kat. It's crucial in wedding planning, as in any other collaborative endeavor, to consider and respect the opinions and feelings of those involved, especially if they are in your wedding party. While it is entirely reasonable for her to have the final say on wedding details, it is also essential to communicate and compromise when possible to ensure that everyone feels valued and included. Ultimately, the right course of action in such situations often involves open and respectful communication, finding compromises when possible, and recognizing that the wedding is not just about the bride, but also about celebrating with loved ones who may have their own perspectives and feelings. Story 3. My health is slowly deteriorating, and I'm navigating the last few days of my life. I don't feel the details are super relevant to the issue at hand, but for those who are curious about my ultimate demise, I have cystic fibrosis, and after 2 rejected lung transplants, I've been told there isn't anything else they can do except keep me comfortable in my last few weeks. I've begun my preparations for my funeral and such, and while I was thinking it would be a breath of fresh air in this whirlwind of uncertainty, I could not have been more wrong. Now, on to my story. My parents are both strict Southern Baptists and want a very traditional funeral. This includes hymns to be sung during the memorial, a casket and graveside service, a viewing, countless prayers during the memorial, scripture to be read, etc. My issue with this is, well, everything. I am the complete opposite of my parents, not religious, curse like a sailor, drink like an Irish, you name it. Everything they are wanting and attempting to plan is not me as a person. I somehow made it to 25 and managed to meet the man of my dreams and marry him last year, and he is torn. He wants me to have it exactly as I want. He just doesn't want to have to deal with my parents after the fact while actively grieving. I have 2 siblings, one of whom is a clone of my parents and one who is a mixture of my parents and myself. I want my service to be one full of laughter, funny stories and pictures, upbeat music, and cats. My husband and I are avid cat lovers, confetti, and other fun stuff. But more importantly, I want to be cremated and put in a cat-shaped urn. I told my husband I wanted my ashes to be handed out like party favors so my family and friends could take me with them because I love to travel, and he looked horrified. My parents are absolutely not on board and are essentially planning everything how they want, attempting to take me shopping for a casket, flowers, picking out hymns and verses, the whole deal. I'm obviously not very pleased. So I guess my question would be, WIBTA, if I took control of my own funeral and wrote a will to be followed exactly how I want it, I understand my parents are grieving and I've tried to compromise with a mixture of both my views and theirs, but they aren't having it. I never thought dying would be so stressful, and I just want to enjoy what time I have left without leaving a bomb of emotion and disappointment behind. Please, help. By the way, I would like to clarify the ashes as party favors thing. I wanted my closest friends and family to go home with a vial or something of the sort of my ashes. That way they could do with them as they please. Not everyone will get a piece of me, as strange as that sounds. I am writing down everything that I want and will be approaching my parents in order to find a compromise. Yes, funerals are for the living, and being able to remember that person for who they were is important. I'm not all of the things my parents wanted me to be, and I want them to understand this as they deal with my passing. I am willing to compromise, so wish me luck. I will attempt to keep up with everything, and as lame as this sounds, I'm off living my best life and trying to do something different every day, so I won't always have my phone. Tomorrow, we're traveling to the Everglades so I can watch my husband be terrified while on an airboat. It's gonna be awesome. Update. Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for all the kind words, support, and love that everyone has offered and given. These past few weeks have been the most difficult I have ever experienced, and it is with great sadness that I tell you all that my beautiful and cat-crazy wife has passed. I've had to cut this short due to character limits, sorry to all. But she did leave all of you a note, Reddit. I've copied everything verbatim below. She truly loved everyone and was smiling so much after her first post. I'll take my leave here. Much love. Reddit, if you're reading this, I am gone. Pretty crazy to be talking to someone who has passed away, eh? It feels a bit strange to be writing this. If this feels a bit disconnected, I'm sorry. I have to take frequent breaks as I get tired pretty quickly now. My husband offered to write these words, such a sweet ham, I know. Be nice to him, okay? But I wanted my last words to be written by me. Long story short, we talked to my parents. A lot of people asked about why my husband wasn't planning the funeral, and my parents were taking control. Honestly, my parents didn't take the news of my passing well, and I suppose their closure was to try and take control of what they could. I'm not angry at them for it, I understand. They had already prepaid a large portion of the service, and to put it plain and simple, it was a tough hand they were dealt. So we talked to them, I laid it all out for them, and somehow we reached a compromise. Lots of tears, lots of hugs too, and surprisingly, a lot of laughs. They admitted that they had been losing their faith with everything that had happened, and their way to attempt to find it again was to take control and quote-unquote guide me into the afterlife. Not my thing though, and I explained that I am not them but their daughter who wanted to live her last weeks in peace, not the turmoil they were putting me through. And while a lot of people stated that funerals are for the living, true, I firmly believe that a funeral is for the living to remember that person as who they were, not what anyone else wanted them to be. My parents seemed to understand when I told them that. They were not on board with the party favor aspect though, which is kind of a bummer. But I'm pretty lucky to have planned my own funeral, honestly. But now that that is all said and done, thank you guys. I was blown away by the responses. I was moved to tears, and I wish I had the chance to meet every single one of you. You all be good now, alright? Take it one day at a time and enjoy yourself. You only get one life, unless you're someone who has survived death. You're just a hero and probably a cat with a few lives to spare. I love you all. I'm resting easy now. This disease stinks, and I'm happy to be rid of it. And laugh, love, cry, and be sad. Stuff happens. I've got to go now. I'm going to go snuggle with my husband and my cats. Keep it real, Reddit. I love you all. His story offers a touching and heartfelt glimpse into a situation many of us hope to never face, navigating the final days of our life. That brave lady revealed her own health struggles, sharing that she had been fighting and is living with the disease and had been told that she only has a few weeks left to live. In the face of this devastating news, she's begun preparations for her own funeral. One of the main conflicts in her story revolves around her desires for her funeral and the contrasting wishes of her parents, who hold very traditional religious views. She wants a lighthearted, celebratory funeral that reflects her own personality, including elements such as laughter, funny stories, upbeat music, and nods to her love of cats. Her crazy idea about her ashes being distributed as party favors to friends and family seems a bit odd, but she was well-meaning. In her heart, she just wanted to share a piece of herself with people whom she loved and who loved her back. So the critical question in this story is, who has the right to make decisions about one's own funeral, especially when the wishes of the deceased conflict with the expectations or beliefs of their loved ones? While it is true that memorial services are for the living so that they can remember and celebrate the person who passed away as they see fit, it is vital to remember that the deceased be remembered for the person that they were in their lifetime. Each person has their own way of celebrating, or in this case, grieving, and what is important is to be able to respect each person's way of dealing with things. The lady knew this and faced the dilemma of wanting to enjoy their remaining time without leaving behind a legacy of disappointment and emotional turmoil. Ultimately, the story ends on a hopeful note, with her sharing that she had managed to find a compromise with her parents. It's a reminder of the power of open communication and understanding, even in the face of challenging circumstances. I would like to take a nod at the heartfelt message she shared in her final words that emphasizes the importance of living life to the fullest, embracing both joy and sorrow and being true to oneself. Poignant reminder of the impermanence of life and the need to cherish each moment. So if you enjoy these stories, you won't want to miss r/entitled parent. Parents decided to cancel my birthday. Story number 2 is quite unbelievable. Also, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to stay in the loop about our upcoming videos. I'll see you there.